We know now that while around 22% of Australian startups are founded by women, they receive just 0.7% of private sector funding in the 2022 financial year. Our next guest is on a mission to change this. Sarah Moran is the co-founder of Girl Geek Academy, a movement to bring 1 million women and girls into tech careers by 2030. Through Girl Geek Academy, that's very hard to say actually, a bit of alliteration, Girl Geek Academy, she's working to shift the way political leaders, schools, young girls and professional women think about and practice STEM. She is an alumni of our long-standing Queensland education partner QUT, an early adopter of electric vehicles and a proud supporter of emerging women entrepreneurs. Please welcome to the stage Sarah Moran.
Thank you all for the invitation to speak today. Just waiting for my slides. I know who I am. There we go. Can I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands and waterways on which we're meeting and pay my respect to elders past and present. I take this opportunity to pledge my commitment to truth-telling, treaty and justice, and to the success of the Uluru Statement of the Heart and the Yes campaign. As the founder... As the founder and CEO of Girl Geek Academy, I have been invited to reflect on the UN's Global International Women's Day theme, Cracking the Code, Innovation for a Gender Equal Future. I am a girl geek. I started coding when I was 5 years old. At Lismore Heights Primary School, my classroom teacher, Mr. Cam, successfully applied for federal government funding for a set of networkable Australian-made computers called microbees. For me, computers were a group activity. It was something you did socially. We would climb on top of each other in this tiny classroom, group of 5 and 6 year olds saying, "Oh, how did you do that? I want to learn how to do that." So to me, it was always a social thing. What a buzz. I learned coding and I kept on coding, right up until year 10. I was the first girl computer programmer at my high school to enter a computer science competition. I have the receipts. I used to lie and say I was going to choir practice when I was actually going to the computer room, because being a girl geek was not a way to succeed socially in a country town high school. For every moment of encouragement or success in my career journey, there have been equally difficult encounters that contributed to my self-doubt. I have been pushed out over and over and over again. I can clearly remember being pushed out as a teenager. I was the only girl left standing doing computer science as an elective subject. A male teacher, who was not a computer science teacher, he was teaching out of field, downgraded my website assignment to a pass minus, I don't even know what that is, because my website didn't look like everyone else's. So therefore, it must be wrong. Now the thing is, I was passionate about this subject, and everyone else's website followed the instructions and theirs were grey and boring. But I put in extra time. I recoded the colours. I added glitter. And then I put in all this extra effort, and then I was punished for it. At that point, I was 16. Look, I wasn't that rebellious. I was a nerd. But I thought, well, if tech doesn't want me, why would I want to be in tech? And I left. But slowly, I crawled my way back. Then there was the tech startup, where I was the only woman manager, and I turned up to work one day to find all the managers had gone. I rang one of them and I said, "Hey, where are you?" And they said, "Oh, we're having a managers meeting at the golf course." They'd completely forgotten to invite me. Then there was the startup. I was told I was too aggressive. That's code for holding men accountable for the things they tell you they're going to do and then don't. Meritocracy is a myth. Then I went to Silicon Valley to talk to companies about how they could do better on gender equality. They're the ones making the internet. They're also the ones breaking it. So after meeting all these companies in San Francisco, I finally met one of the global managers of the company, and he said, "Yeah, I have to hire 46 engineers before the end of the year, and I would totally hire more women." I just don't want to lower the bar. Yeah, that's not the reaction you get in America. So I think until tech rethinks its attitudes to women, the digital future will remain the domain of a very small group of tech bros. They say Silicon Valley is the best place in the world to build a tech startup, which is true, unless you're a woman. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and picture hacking. Like, just picture it. Okay. You can open your eyes now. If this is the image that popped in your head, this is the popularized image of a computer coder, a faceless, hoodie-wearing male hacker sitting alone in their bedroom, delivering up global genius in the dark. And as long as we think of the startup whiz kid as a man and rewards, money and promotion go to the casual male tech genius and his masculinized risk-taking, while demanding women innovators deliver perfect business plans before even getting a cent, we will continue to have perverse reactions when women display these necessary risk-taking qualities and seek out the same rewards. Carolyn Criado Perez, in her incredible book, Invisible Women, calls this the brilliance bias. When women pitch their startup ideas, studies show that women face more preventative questions about potential losses, while men field more questions about potential gains. As a result, women do more to prove they are not risky to be a worthwhile investment. But in startups, that's just not how it works. You get funded for taking risks. That's how investors make their money. Venture capital firms don't invest in safe businesses. They invest in 10 companies, knowing that 7 will definitely fail, 2 will break even, and 1 will become a unicorn. If you're really lucky. Startup teams are often built at hackathons, and the ones we used to go to were full of dudes consuming nothing but pizza and energy drinks over 3 days. The guys at the end would say, "Oh, thank you so much for coming. Why don't more women come?" And we would look at them and go, "Oh, why does anyone come? This is a terrible event. Like, get out of your basement." So on International Women's Day, 10 years ago in 2014, we decided to run a hackathon that we would actually want to go to. It felt a lot like this room today. This is She Hacks, a Girl Geek Academy hackathon. This is what hacking looks like to me. After we ran this event, I said to my girl gang, I said, we should totally make friends with all the other women running all-women hackathons, and we should be their friends. So I looked, and I looked, and I looked. Oh, we'd accidentally run the world's first all-women hackathon right here in Australia. Which is great and deserves the applause, but also, like, that's the bare minimum. Putting women in a room and tell them to get out their computers, that's the bare minimum we can do to support women. So this is like the low-hanging fruit of supporting women in tech. If no one's doing that part, who's actually doing the hard stuff? And that's how Girl Geek Academy was born. The task of computation, reviewing complex mathematical data and processing, used to be performed by highly educated women with meticulous attention to detail and staying power. In fact, computing time was measured in girl hours, and a kilogirl was a unit of computer power equal to 1,000 girl hours. Women once dominated IT, but not anymore. And while I have seen some improvements in Australia, the reality is we're going backwards in engaging girls and women in these critical new industries. Women-led startups receive only 3% of global venture capital investment. In Australia, that figure dropped to 0.7% in 2021. That's nothing. We've given all the money to the dudes to go build the cool stuff. Also in 2021, women began questioning the low levels of investment in us over successive federal budgets. And as the Premier mentioned, there was a march. We were angry. You may remember that former Prime Minister Scott Morrison said, "No one credible was making these statements and criticisms of the budget," resulting in a movement of women professors, media and CEOs banding together to force a rethink on gender investment. Morrison's comments made so many women irritated because, regardless of what industry women work in, we're used to double standard stereotypes about the money coming our way. Look, I'm grateful for the project-by-project investment I've had from parts of the tech sector that get it. These investments have been critical, but they're insecure and patchy. When budgets are cut, so are our programs. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I don't know if Girl Geek Academy will last. We won't survive. I've had a full-time job since the pandemic hit. This is a side hustle for me. We're not the only ones in this position, but I'm possibly the only one stupid enough to come out and say it publicly. A few weeks ago, on the United Nations International Day for the Women and Girls in Science, I decided to stick my neck out and send a press release raising my concerns about the lack of sustained funding for programs to address gender inequities in STEM. I came out and said, we're broke. Where's the funding commitment to actually fixing these issues? We can't continue to solve the problems of women's underemployment and lack of access to investment funds through siloed women's initiatives with very little cash. We need the heart of a tech jobs strategy aimed at boosting Australian innovation to have a full gendered lens applied. It's great to have a Minister for Finance who is a woman, and I have no doubt Katie Gallagher will be doing everything to bring down a gender-responsive budget in May. But I'm concerned by the Minister for Industry and Science, Ed Husick's comments about a funding freeze on all new initiatives to address gender inequality in STEM and entrepreneurship until the third year of Labor's term. I marched. I want to see a difference made. Did you even know that? Did you know that there was a funding freeze on new initiatives for women in STEM? It's crickets. The National Gender Equality Strategy, the Women's Economic Equality Task Force, and the National Science Review must include commitments to addressing gender discrimination in our technology industries and in government-backed investment for women-led startups and entrepreneurs. But these reviews are not an excuse to put a brake on funding. Brakes on funding break us. That's how we're broke and broken. While other parts of the industry may be able to bear that, women can't. COVID-19 wiped out a heap of affirmative action programs for women that used to exist on the smell of an oily rag and on the backs of women-led events and volunteers. Those that still do exist are struggling. In my press release, I named a long list of organisations led by women who are doing incredible things to correct inequities, but are struggling for cash. The average per annum investment over 8 years for all community programs supporting women in science, technology, engineering, maths, and entrepreneurship is little more than $2.5 million per year. It's barely enough to keep one gender-based science organisation going, let alone the full gamut of tech-based gender equality projects out there looking for sustainability to make real change. We have to move past the catch-all siloed funding for women and grapple in a more sophisticated way with gender inequality. We need a fund to support schools to engage girls in programming and coding, like our Miss Makes Code program. For high school girls, we need a national AI education program. I've been running one, but the funding ran out in December. I had to just give it up. We need a fund to encourage big companies to offer tech work experience for girls in Year 10. We've led on this too, and it works. We need early career programs to mentor match with existing women in industry. We need more all-women hackathons like She Hacks, where women can build technology together. We need a cash boost to early-stage startups led by women. We need funds to apply a gender lens on the emerging Australian games industry. And finally, we need funding to increase the number of women angel investors and venture capitalists in Australia, so there are more women investing in other women. The current funding of the Women in STEM and Entrepreneurship program tries to address this in one small pool. $2.5 million a year? That's not enough. The federal government has committed to 1 million tech jobs by 2030. Sounds so good as a slogan. Women must be equally included as part of this solution. Otherwise, the government will simply be exacerbating the issues we're trying to solve. We shouldn't be spending government money on making problems worse. The International Women's Day theme, Cracking the Code, is based on the United Nations Committee for the Status of Women in New York, happening over the next week, for those of you who don't know. How amazing would it be if the Australian delegation could announce Australia's commitment to Cracking the Code Fund to signal the government's intention to apply a gender lens on new and emerging digital industries? If you're here today, you're a little bit grumpy, like me, And you're wondering, oh, well, what can I do? I'm not a politician. I don't know. Now, there's almost a killer girl of us in this room. And most of you, because you're cracking the code, have your phones. So I'd like you to all get out your phones. I'm not hearing enough phones. In case you can't tell, I'm a hustler, which I'll get to in a moment. Get out your phones, take a photo of this. Take a photo of the slide, selfie with the slide if you like. And the minister loves Instagram stories. The amazing thing about interest in Instagram stories is you also get a read receipt. You can see when he's seen it. It's amazing. I'll probably be blocked after this talk. But if we can together put in the 1,000 hours, okay, let's face it, it's a minute, of effort that it would take to ask the minister for this, we are much less easy to dismiss. I don't want us to be dismissed. Concurrently, I have this talk being published in the Australian Women's Weekly online, and there I've made the call for people to call the office. You can do that after if you like. So I want the minister to make a commitment to cracking the code and fund emergency crisis funding now. ChatGPT came out a couple of weeks ago. It's changed the world. We need to adapt and do it quickly. And I'm not afraid to hold the cupcakes hostage, Ed. Next week we will have a lot of politicians, a lot of corporates who are rocking up, and they are happy to say, we love women, we love the ladies. Back it up with your budgets. It's funny, but it's so true. And if not, no cupcakes. Yep. Thank you. Now, when I teach girls about how we build technology, I say you need 3 people on your team. Hackers come with the coding skills and they build stuff and break stuff and drive the development of the tech. Hipsters make the tech look and feel amazing through great design. And then there's the hustlers like me who bring ideas to market and make sure they're sustainable. I've been pushed out of tech again and again and again, and now I'm hustling hard to stop that happening to other women and girls. But we need all hands on deck to get there. And I'm serious, please call Minister Husick. Tell him what we need. You all need to use your hustle muscle over the next week and ask the question, how are the people in power avoiding cracking the code? Challenge directly and use your cupcakes to get us there. Thank you. Do I hand it back over? I think there's Q&A, but I don't know how it works.
No, I understand you can't leave us just yet because you're going to take some questions from the audience, aren't you? So I think any budding journalists in the audience who'd like to ask Sarah a few questions, put your hands up. There's a microphone over there. Oh, we've already got one taker already.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Is this working? Hello. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for speaking. My name is Rose Dash. I'm the Chief Client Officer at Multicultural Australia. And my question is, I guess, what specific efforts does Girl Geek Academy make to reach out to and support underrepresented female groups in the tech industry? And what could we all do not to only increase representation of women in tech, but women from marginalised backgrounds?
Yeah, look, so at Girl Geek Academy we have, I'm not alone, it's not just me, I have 4 co-founders and we are a very diverse group of people and we come from diverse industries and diverse experiences and diverse backgrounds. I think what we have learned is that if you're going to be making change, you need to include the people that you're trying to create change for in the process. So when I said we created a program teaching high school girls AI that ran during the pandemic and right up until December last year. And one of the key things we did was had an open feedback process with them. They co-created our programs and we surveyed them. And we actually said, well, who are you if you're willing to share? And what really surprised me was actually that 3% of our high school attendees are identified as non-binary. And that's really was quite high for us. And so really respecting what it is we need to do to bring those people along But the thing I've learned is that you need more resources to do that. So it's actually quite easy to bring a group of white privileged white women together in a room for a cup of tea and put a dollar figure on access. But getting out into communities and actually making sure that that your tables are diverse and all that sort of stuff, it takes extra effort. There's, if you put an intersectional lens on it, everyone comes with different challenges, and the more diverse you are, the more effort you need to put into embracing those people. And we have a long way to go. Otherwise, we'll just end up with 50% women and they all look like me. And I don't want to see that. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Lauren and I'm a volunteer for the UN Women Brisbane chapter. My question is, you've spoken about how you've been forced out of the tech industry multiple times, and I think a lot of us may experience that in some way throughout our different industries that aren't female prominent. So my question is how do we have conversations to, bring people along with us, particularly men in these industries, so they understand how difficult it is for us?
Well, as women, the number one thing I would say is that you lift as you climb. So it doesn't matter if you're a junior burger just starting your new role, you reach back to high school girls. If you're a woman in senior leadership, you advocate and use your power to make sure there are budget line items attached to women in technology programs in your company. I spoke to a senior leader in a technology company about this, and she was like, "Oh, it's just always more work, isn't it?" I'm like, yeah, sorry, it is. That's the reality of it. And so if you get to the top, you can't coast. And most senior women know that. That's not a criticism. But I think we've all been pushed out. And what we need to focus on is how do we keep the women around us together? Your girl gang is key to your career success. Anyone who's made it to the top will tell you there was a group of women behind her, ushering her along. And then in terms of bringing men along, there's a lot left to be learned. Really looking forward to that International Women's Day lunch where there is a room full of men who solve that problem for me. I'm not a man, I don't know. However, yeah, I think we need to work with allies where we can, and your women's programs should have dedicated streams that have space for women, but complementary streams that include men. That's my quick advice. Next speaker. Did I do the next speaker bit? Okay, yeah, no, there's another question in case you can't see.
Hi, Sarah Beck Manley here from Stanwell and also the co-chair of UN Women's Brisbane chapter. We have a lot of corporate tables here today and many of them aren't in the tech space specifically. What can we all do back in our workplaces to resolve this issue and crack the code?
Yeah, look, I think to my point about budgets, so does your company have a Women in Technology employee resource group? And if so, how much funding do they get and who does the labour to run it? These things are often like, yeah, we'll give you some money for catering. No, that's not enough. That's cupcakes again. So we need to see a true commitment to these sorts of things. And there are other companies that you can look to that do that. I know that NAB used to commit $300,000 a year to their Women in their Women in Technology program as a budget line item, and the inclusion of women was part of the tech team's KPIs. They had 2,500 people, including men, who were part of their Women in Technology program. But it was budgeted, there was room for actually accounting for those things. Otherwise, if we can't measure it, what's the point? I'll be here in 10 years. I'll be here in the retirement home.
Hi, I'm Ajari, the current chair for Women in Technology here in Queensland. You talked about that girl gang that's been supporting you. I really wanted to ask a question for all those parents in the room that have girls coming through high school or younger. What's your advice for parents in this space? And how might your parents have helped you through this?
Yeah, great. Oh, my parents were hopeless. My dad, he replaced our home computer with an electronic typewriter. My parents didn't give me the internet, and my aunt, paid for it, and then this is how naughty I was. I snuck the internet when I was growing up. But anyway, so I guess the moral of that story is that sometimes that support doesn't always come from parents. It can come from aunties and other women around you, and that's that role modelling behaviour. And I think men have a different role to play in how they role model technology careers in the home, because I have a lot of young girls who come up to me and they're like, yeah, my dad's a coder, but he's also a massive dork. And so I'm like, oh, that's kind of, oh, okay, but can you maybe see the good bit about what he does? So we really have to think about how we convey what we do. Maybe if you're a man and you are in technology, you show other women around you who are not the dorky dad about that. Yeah, and so it depends on the age of the girl as well. So girls at 5 think it's the brilliance bias thing, you know, yeah, I'm smart. Literally, I'm teaching girls coding, and at 6, and they go, it's too hard. I'm like, oh my God, you're 6, what? But it comes from their attitudes, and we need to stomp on that. And I tell young girls, if it's hard, that's how we grow. I mean, I don't tell them to go to the gym, but if you do, you know, you stretch your muscles and it hurts, and then they get bigger. It's the same for young girls. So I could write a book on what I would tell you for that. But anyway, there's more questions than I thought there was going to be. Cut me off when you need to. Okay, yeah, next.
You're just really, really interesting.
Yeah.
My name is Delphina. I'm from Accenture, and just building off of the last question. So I've got a younger sister as well, and she's just making her way in the world. So this is really quite a prevalent conversation. How, you mentioned you ran programs at schools. How can we, if we're volunteering at schools or spending some time in schools, how do we have that conversation with the administration, with the with the girls and the general children at different ages, and how do we kind of seep this narrative in? What's your strategy around that?
Great, I'll be quick. So the rainbow I showed before about where girls and women get pushed out, right? So when girls are in primary school, they go to, you know, if they're a nerd, they go to coding clubs, and it's all guys. If your daughter's interested in technology, find out other girls that are interested in technology and get them together. The same thing happens in high school, but girls can't access work experience. They can't visualise. I mean, I don't know, how do you explain what a tech worker does? Sits there in front of the computer. It's not really, you can picture a nurse. You know, you can picture these other careers, but you can't really picture what it looks like to work in technology. And so start really early and try to get access to work experience. Then annoy your workplaces. Why don't we have work experience for young girls in technology? It's not hard. Actually, I'll help you. Any of you have got some money, come talk to me, and I will definitely set up your work experience programs. But then an interesting thing happens between year 10 and year 11. And I've experienced this Australia-wide, and even the most expensive schools in Australia to go to have this problem, which is where if you can't fill a technology class in year 11, it doesn't run. And so the problem that I'm facing is that I'm increasing the numbers, like, yay, more girls in primary school, more girls in high school, up to year 10, but not enough to justify the allocation of a teacher in the classroom. And that is just the most heartbreaking thing, because girls are good at everything. So, well, they are, yeah, right, yeah, sure, yeah, girls are good at everything. And where that becomes an issue is when they're trying to decide what to do, because we prioritise and we say, well, if you do 4-unit English and 4-unit maths and you do your sciences, then that'll mean that you'll get the best opportunity at uni. And we just instantly push really smart girls who love tech out, because we're trying to optimise marks in year 11 and 12. And as career advice, I can't get them back at uni. The stats show that. And for any universities that are in the room, let's look at adjusting that. We need women's support groups at university that are just there. Do you know how many women in technology groups that are run by women at university? What happens? You've got these girls who are trying to study. The men just get to go through, I'm studying, and that's all I do, and it's great. The women are studying and also helping other women. What the heck? What are we telling them? Of course you don't want to do that. Just go somewhere else where you don't need to start your own club on the side. It's ridiculous. And then there's the stuff that happens into careers as well, which I could be here all day about. Sorry, next question.
Hi, Sarah. Big fan. My name is Mavina. One of my big questions would be for everyone sitting here, how can we invest?
Invest?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yes.
On an individual level, I have some books. It depends. Sorry, can I just clarify that question?
How can we invest in Girl Geek?
Oh, like literally? Okay, I'm not raising funds at the moment. Well, actually, yeah. But if you do, look, if you want to run coding programs at your workplace, they are great for school holidays. It's amazing. I know most of your offices are empty because everyone's working at home. Invest in a work experience program, absolutely. And the way to do that, like normally work experience used to be you follow some person around for a week and that person doesn't get any work done. Instead, it's true, book out the boardroom, chuck the kids in it, and everyone books an hour in to go and have a chat to them. Like, you know, that's 30 people over the week who give up 1 hour rather than one person giving up 30 hours. Like, let's think about how we design these things. I am happy to help, but at the moment I have a full-time job, which is why I'm annoying Minister Husick, because if I didn't have to have a full-time job, I could say, yeah, I'm available to come and chat to you about these things. But unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation. So again, I could get your Ed's phone number, but I'm sure you can look it up, and I will hand it back to our lovely MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for answering those extra questions. You are clearly a very popular guest, and maybe you should think about floating your company on the stock market. You might have a few investors here indeed. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah Moran, I'm going to try and get this out right now, the CEO and co-founder of the Girl Geek Academy. I was practicing. Thank you, Sarah. We are now going to say goodbye to those